So good afternoon, Europe. Welcome to this fifth session of this Marathon at the Best Virtual Summit 2020. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Anna and Adria, two learning guides at Learnlife. Hello, guys.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello.
So probably you haven't maybe heard much about Learnlife, but I'm sure the education model would blow your minds. Learnlife is a clear example of innovation in education, and with a bit of luck, this model will become a revolution in the next few years. But let's avoid some spoilers and we'll come back to our guest. So Anna, Adri, how are you?
Doing good.
I mean, it's the last week with the learners, so a lot of pressure, a lot of closing, graduation ceremonies, celebrations, all of that in this week.
Oh, sure, like should be like quite stressful. We're in the end of this education semester cycle. All right, so I'm sure the audience right now is super excited about what is this all about. So Anna, Adri, in few words, what is Learn Life? Can you tell us to our audience what is exactly Learn Life?
Sure, I'll take this one. Learnlife is essentially a learning paradigm. So what Learnlife is aiming at doing is to collect educators, schools, and institutions all around and collect best practices, test best practices, and expand those best practices around the world. So currently in our Learning Hub in Barcelona, we are constantly innovating in different ways that learning can be done. And in the deeper thinking and philosophical area, we keep developing and investigating how can learning happen in a way that fits the unpredictable future rather than the predictable past.
What sounds amazing. You talk about the point, the hub in Barcelona. So how is actually like this hub in Barcelona looks like? If we go there, what will we find?
All right. So we are sending through a link that hopefully we can get on the chat of the live stream. That is an actual virtual tour of the space. So a bit like Google Maps, when you put the person in the street and you can see the spaces around you. It is a completely redone building in a carless street, which is very nice since we don't have a courtyard inside. And essentially, it's a space that will look much more like a co-working space to anyone looking into it than a school would look like, because essentially there's a lot of open spaces, movable furniture all around, and maker studios. So studios where you can create things. So there's a lot of our learning that happens physically, hands-on, and whenever we have activities that are not physical and hands-on, we are in the other rooms and we adapt them, we move them to the needs. So our biggest room currently, we gave it the name Playa, and if you look into the virtual space, you will see the colors and realize which one it is. Has been used as a yoga studio, has been used for soccer, has been used for physics, has been used for reading, has been used for writing, has been used for so many things.
Okay, right. So just to gain little bit of insight, who are the students in Learn Life?
All right. So first off, we prefer to call them learners, and that's a distinction that is quite core to our being. So we want to call our learners learners because learning is an active action, and we want, just by referring to them like that, for it to feel like they are the ones who are learning, and we are there to support that learning. More on our learners, specifically in Barcelona, we have cohorts of ages 11 through 19-year-old, youngsters, teenagers, kids, and Anna is laughing at the word kids, definitely. And they are having a full-time learning program with us. So they have onboarded after primary somewhere else or coming from a different system and are joining us as their full-time learning journey.
In addition, we're soon to open spaces for primary ages too, and hopefully also soon for like early years, like your kindergarten ages. We still don't have that, But the vision is to create a lifelong learning platform. So that means that our model is meant to be from 0 to 100. What that looks like, learners, lifelong learning. So that means that then it makes sense, I will say, for our title to be learning guides, because we're also learners in our self, like in our own self. We're not the teacher that has achieved things and our professor that has a look down on the rest that needs to be brought up. Is now we're side by side, no, accompanying and providing resources as Adri suggested. Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting, and I would like to get a bit more insight about this topic. You said lifelong learning. So why lifelong learning is important?
Okay, well, the first why I think is pretty clear and visible, as the predictability of the world rises, more and more adaptation and redefinition skills are needed. So if we look at the amount of different jobs that a person had in the past versus the amount of different jobs that a person has now, it is very clear that those spans are getting shorter, and the amount of times that you need to learn something new, change your path, change your skills, change your views is more and more often. So lifelong learning is essential to just being and thriving in the present and in the future. Anna,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think like education traditionally has been a goal and hasn't been a journey for many. Meaning, for I will say, most of the world, the goal is to accomplish a university degree, and that is when education ends and learning ends. Therefore, the mindset of a lifelong learning is that I continuously have power to evolve and to make my life and my purpose greater. Thus, the journey never ends. It will end whenever I choose it to end. No? So it is a very empowering perspective. It's a little bit uncomfortable because taking ownership of your life, as Adri said before, I love how he said it, like, is actually taking action. And taking action is not always easy and it's not always comfortable. But in the process of being a lifelong learner and someone that can adapt, can offer and provide new solutions, continuously being in a pathway of intaking information and resources and skills and tools is what we are vowing for.
All right. So on this topic of like the lifelong learning and this journey in the learning, we have seen like in your website you have a clear explanation about the roadmap. You just said about like these phases about preparing, implementing, supporting. Would you please like give us a bit more like detail about how you're actually teaching your learners? Which model do you use?
Yeah, so we have we have right now 3 programs, as Adri said, for the ages 11 to 19. The programs, we don't have like classes, like 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, like we don't have that. We have more like clusters. And the clusters are usually in social emotional maturity. That's like I will say the main characteristics that keeps them together. And our model is based on exploring and discovering and creating and reflecting. So there are elements in each of those categories, hopefully in every single day, and or even within each of the activities that the learners are doing. So as Adi was commenting on the spaces, for example, our studios, we have workshops. We also have this system called levels, where it's a more self-directed track where you gain access to tools that are in the studio. So for example, for the fashion studio, through the levels, you get access and you learn how to use the different equipments, from the sewing machines to like the very special rulers for pattern making and carpentry, the drills and the saws and all the things that any mother of an 11-year-old wants to see them with hands on. Not, but like the goal is that, of course, you empower them and that they feel that they're self-directing. So learning has to have all those elements in order for it to be relevant and exciting. So you gotta be able to discover, to explore by yourself, to create something with what you have been exploring, and to reflect on what did you just do. And that is an iterative process that just keeps happening throughout the day with each of the elements, like all along. To the point that actually this week, as a closing to their trimesters, with the trimesters, we call them cycles, their summative assessment is a 360 review, which is where the learners are reflecting on all the most meaningful experiences that they had in the past trimester, what they have learned, what have been the challenges, what would they like to go for next cycle, how can they transfer things to new spaces or new topics of interest. So as you can imagine, it's very empowering to hear 17, a 13, or an 11-year-old saying, this is what I learned, this is how I did it, this is what I'm looking forward. You know, it's very like, whoa. A test and you getting an A in a test will not give you the same sensation for sure, and the same insight to the mindset of a learner.
Okay, so it's just to recap a bit. They are not courses, not like split by age, but for maturity, let's say, and you engage in them in this iterative process when you actually later encourage them to reflect on what they have learned, what they want to do, and all this model to pursue this end, which I think at some point you mentioned is the Japanese word ikigai. I would love to hear more about this term. What does it mean, and how you're like bringing that into your model in Learnlife?
Go for it, Adri. Take the Ikigai way.
Right. So Ikigai. Quickly definition, right? Ikigai is a Japanese philosophy of purpose. And this philosophy establishes that when you are doing something that you like, that you're good at, that you get recognized or paid for, and that is creating a positive impact in the world, then you found your purpose. And also your purpose in life can change. So one important aspect is for us to grow their skills in identifying their ikigai, identifying their strengths, their desires, the areas they care about where they want to make impact, and to be on a constant review mindset where they analyze themselves every now and then and see what they're doing is what they want to do and what feels passionate and what gives them purpose. Because when they are learning something connected to their purpose, that learning becomes super relevant. Now, this is very abstract. So when we have an 11-year-old and we talk about ikigai, we start with the basics, and we may have, for example, a strengths Olympics session where we try a bunch of different small activities, like one language activity, one origami activity, one rally activity, and they assess how they liked and how good they were at different activities, and that starts broadening their perspective of what all their possible strengths could be and which ones they would like to explore. And you can do similar things with any of the other categories. And as they grow in age and their capacity to reflect and their self-awareness grows, they can start to explore intersections. What is something that I enjoy and will bring positive change to the world, and explore something that's in this intersection.
Right, super interesting this term, not only to make some reference to Oriental like culture, but also because like it's something probably we all thought about, but we didn't have a word for that. So it sounds really interesting. Something I encourage all the audience also to think about what that ikigai is. And
actually, right now the greatest market for Ikigai are learners ages 35 to 45, because usually at 35 you had already finished your university studies, you hopefully found a job of some sort, fingers crossed to our generation, that is within the field that you chose. And then sometimes you realize that the field that you chose was a choice that you made for whatever reason that is not connecting to your passions or not to something that you're good at, or you're not going to recognize, and you feel that there is a space or an emptiness. So definitely, it's a great recommendation. Look for it online. There's a lot of resources online on how to tackle it. And one of the questions that we ask our learners is, I think the projections for 2030 and 2040 already that are coming out in terms of self-employment, in terms of having several jobs at the same time, will be a reality that we will face more and more and more. I mean, I think coronavirus definitely put it even more to the front as a potential reality. You could be doing things that you hate just for money and just for sustaining yourself. But the Ikigai model is a wake up call and saying, like, no, there are many things that you could do intersections, as Adri said, and actually have a fulfilling life, even though you're doing several jobs, because that is what is required. So what do you choose? What do you choose to do? Do you want to pursue your Ikigai, or do you just want to continue doing what you quote unquote have to?
Sounds like a question. Okay, so I think it's now time to start like introduce some of the audience questions. So the first one is here is who are currently facilitating this learning and who are the educators or learning guides at Learnlife?
All right. Well, at the moment we have a team of 8 learning guides at Learnlife Barcelona. And one of the things that I appreciate the most is the diversity and the range of expertise we have. So naturally, all of us have background in learning and education, coming again from different ages and different contexts and different primary subjects. But then those get broken apart because we don't have subjects. So when I arrived there with my very clear math and tech specialty, I had to learn how to lead a group of 10 teenagers and talk about emotions. So we are also constantly learning and growing our skill. Who are learning guides? Right now, it's this specific team of 8, but also who can be a learning guide? Essentially, anyone with a passion for helping other people grow, who is willing to undergo the learning process and become a learner themselves in order to become a learning guide. I would not like to see a learning guide who's not learning anymore, because then you lose the empathy, you get stuck, and you don't become this role model that you also want to be. So.
Okay, so sounds really interesting, so amazing. Maybe some of the others will like to become a learning guide soon. So just have to drop an email to Learnlife. We're heading to the end of this session, but I would like maybe to introduce 2 more questions. Let's be a bit brief because I think both are really important. So the first one is why did you become learning guides and what is the impact it has in your lives? So more on a personal level for you as educators or learning guides.
Yeah, I can begin in that one. So I was finishing my master's in education policy. When I crossed Learnlife, I was looking for rooms where to live in Barcelona, and there was a poster for seeking for learners ages 16. At the point we were starting with 16-year-olds, and I was like, hey, like, I definitely, like, what they were saying was so out of any other system that I had seen worldwide. But I just reached out and was like, hey, volunteering, internship, like any kind of thing. And that's how my journey started, and I never left. And here I am, and like I have been able to be part and being very lucky in the development of who is a learning guide. Because in the beginning we had the title, but we were that. So you were learning, through it. So my journey to learning guiding has been very interesting because it is, and I think like what Adri said is very important, is you will feel the discomfort of what has been promised to you from your education system. That usually is like, you're set. You learned all you needed to learn, and like that's it. And now go and change the world. And that's not true. That's like couldn't be farther from reality. And it's uncomfortable, and like it took time for me to also feel very comfortable to just accompany the learners and not trying to learn from them or like for them. Sorry, not from them, for them. So having this process of hey, you want to learn like aerodynamics? I'm like, okay, I'm not an engineer, but I know how to find information and I know how to find resources. And I can connect you with people that actually do know a lot about that. And that it's taking me out from the, oh, I'm the one that knows it all and like I'm the one that is going to manage your learning, from, okay, let me empower you. What passions do you have about aerodynamics? What is it that you want to learn? And in the beginning, that process is very uncomfortable, usually because we are made to believe as educators that we got the answers. And most of the times you actually don't. And you got to be, as Adri was saying, an example of a learner. So I have had to recognize more and more and more and more, and every time even more, with who is Anna as a learner, in order to be a better learning guide, and how to let control go of the world and what the world is meant to be, because in reality we don't control that, but having the trust that the process of learning is enduring and can be applied to anything that me or the learners will go through. How
Thank
has
you.
it been for you, Adri?
For me, I finished my master's in high school teaching, and I didn't put my name on the public system to be assigned to a school, because I knew if I got put into a school and I didn't like it, I would have to say no, and that would put me at the very bottom of the list. So why bother? So while I was looking for an alternative, something where I could make a different kind of impact, I came across Learnlife, and uh, it was the day before the first year of of the whole cohort. So it was September 11th, I think it was, and I just popped in there and became an intern on the following day. So I've been tagging along and learning a lot from the learning guides. And for the last year and a half, I've been a full-time learning guide, uh, trying to take the lead on the more technological, mathematical, scientific side of projects. And the thing that I have had to learn was, I had to rather unlearn many things. I had to unlearn control. I had to completely change the way that I try to influence learner behavior, to get behavior come out of them rather than be imposed, so that behavior is actually something that they develop, they grow into, and they take away, rather than based on my external limitations and impositions that once they disappear, let everything loose. So not having tests, not having grades, not not having all these forced accountability systems meant that I had to develop myself into having powerful conversations with learners and talking about why they do certain things, what is the impact, and get them to realize certain things and get them to figure out what they want to be and who they want to be. And that was something that I had zero preparation for during my teacher training, and that's something that has also poured into my life in terms of affecting how I communicate with people in general.
All right. Thank you, Anna and Adri, for all these inspiring stories. Definitely seems like a challenge to learn so many things and unlearn some other things to take the challenge of this new learning paradigm. So I'm afraid we are running out of time. So I would like to thank from my side and from the whole organizing team to Adri and Anna to be here with us today in the Best Virtual Summit and sharing this experience about Learnlife, which is a model that I wish it would like grow way a lot in the next years, and probably like make a real revolution in how education are done. So, Testo, thank you very much. And for the audience, stay tuned. In, let's say, 3-4 minutes, we're coming back with another super key speaker. We're going to travel from Barcelona to Paris to meet Philippe Antoine, who is a developers relation at Google. So stay tuned, guys. And, well, see you later. Bye-bye.